YouTube, my name's Sean Connors and welcome back to The Outsiders. This is the first video in the series of Let's Build an RPG. Now before we get into it, and before we get into tonight's subject, which is all about theme and tone to this, I think I need to explain a few of the rules about how this is really going to work. Now, in essence, I'm going to be guiding it, but you're going to help create it. Now my plan is simple, that over the next few months, and this is probably going to take us, I'm not saying the whole video series is going to take this long, but my plan is that with this video series, and where I think we'll end up and the timescales that I have, by the end of this year, early next year, we'll have a fully produced RPG. And it will be fully produced. I'm backing it myself, and it will come to fruition. I plan on doing something that Gygax and Anderson did right back in the very beginning. I'm not going to be able to launch it with 1,000 white boxes, but I think I can launch it with at least 100. And let's sell that ship and see where she goes. And the great thing is you're going to be following along the whole process from the building point all the way through. Now we've got tremendous support. We've got some artists on board who are brilliant. I'll talk a bit more about that later. We've got, in essence, at the moment, we've got 6 teams who are going to be doing the playtesting for me. I've still got 2 more teams to recruit, but that's not critical right at this stage. But I want at least to do it professionally. Now these teams are made up of 1 GM and 4 players, and their job is to test each of the processes. At the beginning, those processes are going to can easily be done by email, but as the video series advances, we're going to need them to test out all the theories and all the things that we've come up with. And that's where you really come into it, because as you see each of these videos unfold, you're going to have an opportunity to have your say, put your comments in, and particularly do videos to follow along the series. The most important thing is, if you don't agree with something, great, voice that, and but try to support it. You know, support why you don't think something is working. And equally, don't be afraid to shout out. One of the things I learned as a games designer years ago is that there is no bad ideas. The ideas that I felt were solid gold, weren't going to fail me, were the ones that in playtest just didn't really work out. They were still useful later on. I knew that they were a good idea, a good concept, it just wouldn't work for that particular game. And some of the ideas that I just thought were too crazy and throwaway, you try them out and they actually work really well for that particular game. So those are a few of the factors. Now, let's get into tonight's series. The first one, theme and tone. What does theme and tone really mean for an RPG designer? I think I'm going to add one more cravat in here if I may. This series is my way of doing it. It will be completely the process steps that I would normally take. This doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. There are many ways you can achieve it. But I think if you follow along with this series, you'll see the reasons why we've started here and why we end up where we do. And I think that will make a lot of sense. Obviously, if you go ahead and make your own, which would be great in the end, I'd love that, but you may do it a completely different way, and that's totally acceptable. But I'm going to take you through all my steps, and hopefully you'll see, from a games designer's point of view, why they'll work. So anyway, sorry about that. I had to interject before I forget it, and it's a critical point. So let's move on to theme and tone. What does theme and tone mean? Well, let me give you an example of it first. Theme and tone is something like Vampire the Masquerade. That clearly has a definitive theme and tone. Because when we talk about RPG design, building an RPG, we're really talking about the mechanics here. So naturally, you would want the mechanics to reflect the theme and tone. The closer you get to that, the better the end product's going to be. And I think in Vampire the Masquerade, they did a fantastic job with that. But of course, it's quite a narrow bandwidth, that. Now, we can't afford to have that on this. We need quite a broad one, so as many people as possible can chip in. So the first thing is we need to get a few fundamentals out of the way. This is going to be a fantasy game, so that's the first thing. It's going to be, I'm going to attempt to make it a cross between the very old and the very new. I'm going to try and find the middle ground in the design process. So what do I mean by very old and very new? Old being going back to the very, very roots of our hobby, and new being games that are out there now. In 10 years' time, 15 years' time, those games will be somewhere in the middle. So it's just a fact of where we are now. So that's quite tricky, because we have modern players and we have old school players, and to find that mix is going to be tough. And that will require some compromise. But it gives us quite a nice bandwidth already. Now when we say fancy, can we define it a little bit more with the theme and tone? And that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to use my Outsiders campaign to define the theme and tone. So let me tell you very quickly in a paragraph what that is. The Outsiders campaign was a big success for me. It's one product that I definitely will market. In the end, it will be something I will definitively do, and it might come off the back now of this. That's the point of this RPG. And it was about the time where the idea was that all the dark folk races had won. They had defeated humans, elves, dwarves, halflings, that sort of thing. They defeated them, and then over a process of years, which become a couple of centuries, etc. Basically now some dark folk believe that humans, etc. are a myth, they don't exist anymore. But of course the game is focused on those player types. The actual game is focused on them, the pocket of survivors that exist. So to give you a theme and tone, that is it. Now that would be pretty boring for our first show if that's all we talked about tonight. It's not really leaving any room for you. So I think what we need to do is get right in to the actual mechanics themselves. So let's look at some first steps.